if since it's going to Firefox, it's live somewhere. We just
Yeah.
need, so, but uh, you just don't want to have the echo. So, but we're not getting an echo now. So I think whatever you did is working. So are you ready to start?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to admit this person. They're joining, and I am recording on my end. So
But I don't know if live video is on.
we have to assume it is because you were getting the echo. So I would go ahead and start welcoming people.
Okay. Hey, George, will you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay, great. Okay, good. So I would just want to welcome you to, how am I I have to get my PowerPoint up because that's where I want to start right now. So,
Yep, just click on the PowerPoint screen and you're ready to go.
um, all right, all right, all right. All right. Well, thank you for joining me this morning. I'm so happy that you've cleared out your schedule so that you can be part of this webinar. This webinar is scheduled for about 45 minutes this morning. And at the end, if you have questions that you'd like to ask, feel free to raise your hand. You can raise your hand and we will open up the and unmute so that everyone can answer any questions that you might have. So I'm Gloria Willis. I'm going to be the host of this particular webinar, and I am really passionate about this topic, which is effective employee engagement made simple. I've been following this for about 10 years, and really, if you have come today because you'd like to be working on a team like what is pictured here, and you'd like to be more effective in your ability to promote employee engagement in your company, and if you feel like you'd like to know how it could possibly be simple, I think you're in the right place. And so thank you for being here, and let's just move on. This is me a few years ago. When I started out as a professional person, I was extremely excited about being a professional with a college degree. I was excited about being able to accept a paycheck. I was excited about working on a team with other people. And for about a year or so, I was fine with that. But then what happened is that all of a sudden I realized, wow, I don't really like this work very much. Wasn't all that interested in it. And I just felt disconnected from the rest of the people. I didn't feel like the supervisor seemed to be all that interested in me as a new employee. And I just lost interest. It wasn't fun to come to work anymore. And I thought about quitting, but that really wasn't an option for me. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to get into a management program in my organization where we were studying the effect of how you could possibly reduce costs, cost containment, and it was like a switch was turned on in me, and I loved it. And it started my business coaching career, consulting and training. And eventually this work led me to actually write a book based on some of the clients that I had. So I don't know if that sounds anything like what you've experienced so far, but sometimes we get into situations we are in a job where we are disengaged. And I think it's helpful for us to experience that so that we can be mindful of, what other people may be feeling as well. So here we go. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today, and because we have a small group of people here, we can be casual, and I'm going to try to slow down just a little bit. the agenda today is that we're going to talk about this crisis, and it really is a workforce crisis. Why are the majority of people disengaged, disengaged in their work? The majority of people are disengaged, not just a small portion, but the majority. And what can we do to re-engage our employees? And then at the very end, I hope that you can stay around because I have a special gift for you. So let's jump in and look at, if you look at this picture and you think about it for a second, the Gallup poll puts out a poll every year, and I've been following it for like the last 10 years, where they say, this was 2 years ago, 75% of the workforce is disengaged. Now, do you feel in your own organization that 75% of your people are disengaged? If you do, you can understand more why being a supervisor is difficult and why it's challenging for you. You only need one person or two people that are disengaged and have a poor attitude to really affect your whole team. So that's one of the reasons that, we're taking a look at this today. What got my attention, though, was this price tag of $550 billion every year that it costs businesses in the US for this problem. So I was thinking, well, how can that money be used more productively? Could we use it in creating better salaries for people, better training, more products, more social awareness? Just all the different positive ways that money could be used is an opportunity that we have. And you might even notice it firsthand in that there's not as many resources available to you as there used to be, or some of the benefits have been cut in many numbers of ways that we feel it. So I'd be really curious to know how you've been feeling this crisis in your own organization. Just thinking about that for a second. What we do in companies, though, is we put the supervisor, make them responsible. They inherit these teams of people that are not, or you actually, it's you're the supervisor, you're the manager. You've inherited these teams that are disengaged for whatever reason. And it's important, it's really important to begin to understand what that could possibly be. And that's what we're going to be looking at a little bit more in this presentation today. The supervisor comes on board. Usually they don't have very much training, and they're left with, okay, turn this around and make sure that you produce the results that you need to produce. So that is the crisis. And what is the impact, though? What is the impact? Well, as you can see, one of the biggest impacts is that people just pack up and leave. They don't really want to be in a job where they don't feel like there's a future for them, or they feel that there's not a connection. That's the first indicator that something is awry, is when people start looking for other jobs. They start distancing themselves from the rest of the team and what's going on. And so perhaps you can think about a situation where you have thought everything was fine with your team, but then one day somebody just said, I'm giving my notice today, I'm leaving. And you're totally caught off guard because you really felt like, I thought it was going okay. You didn't really know. And so that is a high cost involved in employee disengagement. It puts a strain for sure on the supervisor when somebody leaves, because you're short-staffed all of a sudden. And, think about it for a second. What are the strains that you've been feeling with your own team, or even just one person? What kind of a strain has it put on you as far as, and how does it influence the job? Because if you have even one of these things, these impacts, lots of mistakes, perhaps theft, people are absent a lot, there's poor morale, there's loss of customers, any of these things that are happening, that it makes your job so much more difficult. And so that is the crisis, is this disconnect between supervisor, employee, and company. And that's something that is so important. I believe there isn't a better time for us to pay attention to what is actually happening and not just take it for granted that this is how it is. So let's just for a second take a look at, and I want you to think about yourself here too, is what do we know about employees? When they come into a job, when you have come into this job, you want to do a good job, right? People want to do a good job. They don't come in to fail. They come in because they need a job. They want to support their families. They have ideas. They want to grow and develop, I believe. They want to know that their skills matter, that they matter, that you see them as a person. And they want to know how they're doing. And I'm sure that might be true for you as well. How are you doing in this job? Because what happens is oftentimes we take it on ourselves. If it's not going well, we think there's something I'm doing that I'm not doing. But what we know underneath all this surface stuff is that employees really want to contribute ideas and be part of the solution. And how can we do that? How can we encourage people to contribute their ideas and be part of the solution? Well, I think it's what we're talking about today, understanding just a little bit more about what are some of the factors. And again, people want to do positive work in environment. Let's just take a look at some of the contributing factors to this disengagement problem. One of the factors is in companies today, we have competing priorities. Does this make sense to you? You're working on something, you've got a project, you've got your team going in one direction, then all of a sudden, a week later, we're changing directions. And the biggest problem is we don't know why. Nobody told us why this is changing or what we should do with the information we just collected and produced. There may be insufficient resources to hire more people if you need more people. And I think the most important one of all of these is that in our companies, most people are totally unaware and unclear about what the mission is of our company. What are we about? What are we trying to accomplish here? What is the vision of how that would happen? And what are the values of the company? What do they hold dear? Why do we need to know that? Well, because the more that employees know what those factors are, the more they can determine whether this is the right company for them or not. And that's true for you too. Is this company value people and to value their ideas? How would they reflect that? And how do they? So that this is a very important factor in this disengagement process. The second one that we're looking at is the fact that most people are disconnected from the organization. We have, working, I put down working in silos. I know I've worked with companies before where the person next to them in the next cubicle had no idea what the person next to them was even doing. And now that we have, or even in their department, the department is, we don't know how that department, the next department affects us. We're not really concerned about that. We don't really know. And so that's what happens with that. Well, why does it make a difference? Well, because if you don't really know how your work contributes to the whole, how would you get some satisfaction in the work that you're doing? It's like operating in a vacuum, and it contributes to people not caring and not being engaged, and also to not being able to make a big commitment to your company if that's the case. So there's lack of feedback about how they're doing. And as a result of that, it is not difficult for people once they've had enough of this disassociation to pack up and leave. It's not hard for them. Whereas when you have a real good connection and people realize that their voice does matter and they matter, it's much more difficult for people to leave organizations. So let's look at one more then. Is this making sense to you so far? Does it resonate with you? Like you've experienced it yourself, or you're experiencing it with the people that you work for? Let's look at the third one. And of course, it goes along with the fact that the communication is lacking. We look at communication channels in companies and see, if the supervisor is in the dark about what's going on, it's difficult for them to supervise in a way that's meaningful for the employees. So often the focus is on money, how are we going to make more money, the bad news, the mistakes that everybody's making. And that does make a difference. If you're focused on the negative, it's almost impossible to focus on what's right. And that's one of the things that is important. You might notice today too, like there's a lot more fears going on. So with the pandemic and the remote working and the change in the political structure, there's all kinds of things that people are afraid of. And when they come into a job and they're wanting to support their life and their children, this is a big factor that supervisors have to deal with. And do you have a way that you can help people identify what their fears are in your organization? Are you aware of them? That's the first point. And the second is, how do you help people get over their fear of losing their job or becoming ill on the job, that kind of thing? So these are three factors basically that have contributed to this crisis that we're experiencing. And I think of for myself that, wow, this is something that looks almost overpowering. Like, how could we ever change that, when we want to change it? And so that is a question that perhaps you've come with today. So ta-da, light bulb comes on. And we look at what is the change that is needed here. And that is a change in transformation, a transformational change in your thinking and focus. I've worked with a lot of companies and even supervisors today on my Facebook group who say they want to change the person. They want them to be more responsive. They want them to do the job better. They want less mistakes. And that may not work overall because you really can't change the person. They have to change from the inside. There has to be something that connects them to a want to change and a reason to change. So that starts with you, okay? Your thinking and your focus. Where are you going to put your focus? So I've got three different focuses here, and you can maybe guess what they are just by what we just talked about. And I would like to say that the first one is about clarity and structure. As a supervisor, you do have some control over the structures that you put in place. And a structure might be a meeting on a regular basis. It could be feedback sessions. It could be certain trainings that you offer. But can you see that you can change the focus simply by introducing a new structure into your company? And by taking this word clarity seriously, does my team know what the company mission is, what the vision is, what the values are, what the goals are? Do they understand what it is? Do I understand? And if you don't understand, then perhaps the place to start right away is with finding out what the mission is. How would you do that? What do you think? How have you found out these kinds of things in the past? Well, I think you just have to start talking to people, the other supervisors, perhaps, your manager, asking them, what's the mission of our company? How does this company think that they're going to accomplish this sort of thing? What do they value the most? And what are our specific goals over the next little while? Yeah, so this is really, in a nutshell, kind of where your job starts, is right here. It's like focusing in on, okay, I think this is important. And you start to see your people, and this is another change in focus, is that see your employees as people versus resources. People come in, they have a family, they have goals, they have skills, and they want to use them. But they're a person, and they have issues that come up from time to time. And so we want them to know we see them as a person, not just a means to an end. And when people get that, in some places that they call that heart-centered focus, heart-centered management is really looking at the heart and soul of people and understanding what their dreams and goals are too. And as a result of that, we can engage them. There is a psychological contract. Are you aware of what that might be, what the psychological contract is? Are you aware of what employees have? It's unspoken generally when they come into a company, but it is an expectation. And it's an expectation that they're going to be treated fairly, that they're going to be paid fairly, that they will be in a safe environment, that they will be working for a company that's going to be respectful of them. And those are, and that there's good ethics, that everything is above board. These are all unspoken, but you know what happens, and I'm sure you can tell me this better than anyone, is that, if those lines have been crossed in any way, it definitely causes people to back up and question whether they're in the right place or not. So you as a supervisor have this responsibility. What are the expectations? Can you ask them, what are their expectations? What were their expectations when they started the company 6 months ago? And what are they now? And how has the company succeeded in providing answered those expectations? That would be an important question to ask your people. We also want to know that, we're all lined up. If you get the company, and company understanding, what's the company here for? And then you begin to understand what are your employees thinking, what's important to them. And then, of course, you want to be in communication with your supervisor and know what's important to them. And then you also had a contract when you came in about your job and what that would be. The new focus is, if all of those are aligned with each other, you're doing well. You're doing better than probably 90% of companies these days, because many companies feel like, hey, there's no reason for you to know that information. You don't need it. And so you don't need to know it. And that mindset really is missing the boat in my estimation, and in working with organizations. So, where in your situation right now do you feel like there might be a lack of clarity with you or your company or your employees or your boss? All of those. Where is there a lack of clarity? And what would you be willing to do in order to gain some more clarity? The new focus then is on employee engagement, making it a top priority. This is not like a hit and miss kind of endeavor. We're wanting to change the focus to having more meaningful conversations, more heart-centered conversations. What's important to you? What's important to you? What are some challenges you might be facing right now? And I have to say that with many of the supervisors that I have worked with that are new, they're uncomfortable with having meaningful conversations. So you only need to start out slowly, because if you make a commitment that this is a top priority, you're making a decision about it, then you can start out slowly. People will grow with you. It's okay. It's really okay. So think about that for a second. Where have you had meaningful conversations? If you haven't had any, maybe it's time to have one. And that would be talking about what's important to you and asking others, how is their day going and what's happening for them? We're looking at finding the greatness in people. What is the greatness that the skills, the dreams, the abilities that they have inside of them that may not be apparent on the outside? But if you start talking, if you start chipping away at it little by little, you will discover what it is. And that, again, is what helps people to re-engage with you. If they feel like you care about them, think about it. Anytime somebody, think about the last time somebody cared about you. They wanted to know you were okay in a storm or something, or they just hadn't heard from you for a while and they just wanted to check in. It feels good. And that is a good share of what we're talking about with employee engagement. You're mindful of the employee experience. And when you find ways to engage people, you see that how their experience changes. So think about it for a second. What would you say the employee experience is in your company? On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you say the overall experience is? Is it above 5? If it is, you're doing a lot of things right. If it's below 5, then it's time to dig in a little bit if you're willing to do that. And you definitely can do that, because what the statistics tell us is that when you engage with somebody, it changes their experience and their engagement as much as 59%. Just by a simple turn to find out and care about them. And that's a pretty big jump, and can make a huge difference, especially if you can do it with everybody, which is what we're considering here. So I mentioned about having conversations, and these are just some of the team building skills that we need to have. And I'll bet if you looked at some of these, you can identify that you're doing a good share of them, but is there one or two that would still give you more insight into your people? Perhaps it's feedback. And again, these do not have to be difficult. These are simple techniques that you can learn even on the internet, that will tell you exactly how to do it if there's an interest. But keep in mind, the focus number 2 is a daily practice of employee engagement. What does that mean? Well, on a daily practice, you are finding 1 or 2 people that are on your mind, or 1 or 2 situations that are on your mind, and you're looking at them from the employee perspective, and you're learning from those. So let's move on, though, time-wise here. The third focus is making a commitment. And here's where we say consistency matters. So this is not a hit or miss kind of a thing. You're looking at every day. And what's the first thing that you think of when you think of that? I don't have time for that. I just don't have time for this. It's going to take way too much time and I'm not going to get things done. And that is the perspective that most people would have about changing. And that's probably why our percentages are so high, because people don't take the time. However, look to see how much time it takes you to recruit new people, train new people, teach new people, learn about new people. That takes time too. So really putting in just a little bit of time every day just a little bit, 15 minutes every day, will begin to move the dial a different direction. And that's kind of what we're looking at. I have in focus number 3, to be a student of the energy and activity level in your company. This is a wonderful skill to have. And that is, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I have, and many times when I've come into a new company, is you can feel the energy. It's really alive, it's vibrant, or it's like seems to be kind of dead. And nobody's moving around, and there's not much conversation. You don't hear any talk. Which one do you want to be in? You know, you get to choose, but for you to be aware of what it is and how you could possibly improve it is something that is a skill that you have at your fingertips. It's something that you can definitely do. Employee pinches, what are they? This again is when you're becoming more aware of when somebody rolls their eyes, or somebody's their body language is all folded up, crossed. They're not open, they're looking down, there's no eye contact. These are what I call pinches. And if you pay attention to them with the person, ask them a little bit about that, tell them you noticed it and what were they wanting to say, then you are engaging in employee engagement. You don't want it to get to be a punch. In other words, you don't want it to be stronger than a pinch. And so part of the ways that you can break into re-engaging people is with knowing what their strengths, capabilities, and desires are. And you want these to be more than just words. You want to be able to think of Joe and think, what I really like about this guy is he's here every day. He makes great contributions in our meetings. He does great work. I could see him in this kind of a job or taking on these kinds of new responsibilities. I wonder what he wants. I wonder what he wants. And you can find that out simply by asking. All right, let's move on then. I'm wondering, I guess at this point, okay, if these points really make a difference for you, if you can see that you can begin to turn your dial to employee engagement by simply tuning into employees on a more personal level, letting them know that you care about them, that you see them as a person with capabilities, and that you care about them. Yeah, you care about them, and you care about their job and their experience on the job. So that was an important part of this whole presentation. The strongest influence is the relationship between employee and supervisor. There's not one place that's stronger than that, really, in terms of making things work in an organization. The supervisor strongly influences the employee, and the employee hopefully can grasp what the supervisor is trying to do and will be on board with them. That is a strong relationship. That's the opportunity in taking some action and doing some of the things that we said about in the focuses. When you build a solid foundation, your employees are going to be on track with you. It's going to feel better. And I can't overemphasize enough the right employees and knowing what keeps them. You know, if you don't have the right employees, what do you think is going to happen? You can't make the wrong employees into the right employees in most cases. You can take a lot of time, and you can start to see them more clearly. But if you have wrong employees trying to do a particular job, it's going to be an uphill battle for you, and you just have to know that. And then, you know, if you can make a decision, you know, that this is important and I want to see this on my team, then you can be moving your team forward. But it doesn't happen by itself. You have to make a decision about it. And so that is really a choice that you have going forward, a real choice. And this is what we want to see, that supervisor employee come together. And what are some of the results that you can expect? Well, let me just tell you about, I've just flashed some of these out here for you, but these are some of the things that you can expect. I worked with one team who, this guy had taken on a new group of people, a new team, and he had experience in, he had some high level experience. So when he came in and he saw the numbers of the current team, he thought, I want a little bit more than this. And he changed the whole marketing plan to be, we're not going to do local contracts anymore, only national ones. And this was a huge change. Nobody on the team knew how to do that. And so he had individual meetings with each person. And he said, this is where we're going. This is what your job would look like. I'm just wondering if you would be interested. You want to be on the team or not? He actually asked them, do you want to be on the team? And they said, well, we don't know how to do it. And he said, well, I'm going to train you. I'm going to train you how to do it. And I think out of his team of maybe 8 people, 2 people left. They left on good terms because they had the choice. And they moved on, and he taught these people how to work as a team, how to have this kind of team spirit, how to help each other, how to be confident in their work. And they produced outstanding numbers. And that was a part of the goal of it, is to improve our numbers. And the supervisor worked regular hours. He wasn't picking up the slack on anybody on his team, because if there was slack, they wouldn't be on the team anymore. They had to measure up. And oftentimes what I hear is people saying, hey, this person's not measuring up. Should I just fire him? What can I possibly do? And we're taking a different perspective here when we look at what can you do? You can start talking to them, for one thing. Just firing is a knee-jerk reaction. And I had a bad experience myself early on when I was a manager over 60 full-time equivalents, where I fired somebody that I didn't think was up to speed with what I thought was important. I didn't take any time really to work with her or talk with her. And I have to say, I regretted it so much in the later years after that. So is this something that you think is even possible for your team, or are you seeing certain places where this is actually happening now? If so, I think you're on the right pathway, and you're doing a lot of the right things. My concern, though, is that so much of the employees today are not seeing this kind of result in their company when 75% of them are disengaged. So my challenge to you today, if you're willing to take it, is to start working with each person individually, one person at a time, and see if you can improve their level, their experience working on the team with you. And what could you do to improve their experience? How could you acknowledge them so they feel like they are important and that you care about them? And what would you do about that? So I think that here we go. There is a first acknowledging that, yes, we have a crisis going on right now. It doesn't seem to be getting better. It seems to be getting worse. What could I as a supervisor do? And would I be willing to do something towards creating a result? The reason I bring it up, and I'm sure you have noticed this too, is that everybody does not have a bad experience at work. Some people have a really positive experience at work. And if that's what you want, that's really what I decided early on. I think work should be an exciting, interesting place to come to be a part of. It should be engaging. It should be responsive to the employees that work there. And it is possible. And how I know that is that some companies have that. And you can too. You can too. It may take a little bit more time than what you had envisioned, but the results for you will be, you will begin to enjoy your job more. And isn't that what you want? You want to enjoy your job more. So, and you want your employees to love their jobs, to make a commitment to you, to have a team spirit. These are all possible goals. People are accomplishing them. So let's look at what's next. You know, some of you may feel totally confident in being able to accomplish this. You're already doing it to some extent, and some of you may not. Which team are you on? Are you on the one that you feel like, I got this? Or are you on the one that goes, you know what, I'd like some help with this. This is a much bigger issue than I thought. And I don't know that I can do it alone. I am producing and preparing a next more information on employee engagement 2.0. Okay, what that is going to entail is helping you to strengthen your skills and effectiveness for the transformation that you're wanting to have, to help you develop a blueprint for action, to actually support you at every stage of the transformation program, and have questions and answers every week that you can tune into, and so that you can start noticing progress, so that you can start being accountable for whatever it is that you're wanting to accomplish, and that you can go to the next level in employee engagement. Some of you may feel stuck and you don't know, because there's so many things that you could do, what to do next. So this is something for you to consider, and you can direct message me if you'd like to have more information about it. I will be coming out with more information shortly and putting it on Facebook, on my groups, to let you know where you can find that information. So here's my gift to you. I said we're almost at the end of the time. My gift to you is that I'm opening up for you to have a one-to-one session with me this week. My schedule is open the rest of this week, and you can find it on this site called calendly.com/Glorienko. And just schedule a time in there anytime starting today through Friday, actually start today through Friday. And we'll have a conversation. We'll talk about what's unique, your unique situation, what strategies that you might have for moving forward. So probably what you need to ask yourself is, how am I about asking for help and support on these kinds of issues? Do I want anybody to know what I'm feeling? And I hope the answer is yes, because more and more in all the different new things we take on board, we do need to have a place where we can check in to that. So I think that we can open this up if there are any. Well, the last slide that I have is, I think this slide represents the freedom and the well-being that you can have once you take into consideration your team, the people there, and that you can make a decision for more employee engagement, starting out in the simplest way. Don't compare it to anybody else, but ask yourself, am I willing to jump off? Am I willing to take the next step forward and experience this sense of freedom, the sense of all is well with my team? And you just might ask yourself, is it time for you to do that? So we can open up the chat. Does anybody want to raise their hand to ask a question? We can do that and answer them in the next just a few minutes. And if not, I just really want to thank you for joining me today. So we'll just leave it open for a couple of minutes here and see if there's anybody who has a question. And thank you for giving me the privilege of your time today. I really appreciate it. And you don't have to do this alone. I have a lot of experience in this area. I would love to be a support to you. And I will be producing more and more programs in this area that can help you with the skills that you need to move forward in a very dynamic way.